We're ready to talk politics with some of the best. I'm excited, guys. Thank you so much for being out here tonight. I'm Fast Eddie Cayazzo. If you didn't know, I always wear the hat out in public.
Yeah.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you. It's a beautiful thing. And I want to thank our great sponsor, the Cigar Republic, out here in Conshohocken. Beautiful place. And now it's time to meet our panelists for the evening. You ready? Are you ready? All right, folks, he fights the war for America's soul every single day from 3 to 6 p.m. on Philadelphia's AM 990 The Answer and across the country. He is the former strategist to Donald Trump. President Donald Trump, everybody. You ready? Can I introduce you to Dr. Sebastian Gorka? Thank you. All right, now I get to hang out with this guy every morning, so it's cool for me. But it's the greatest 3 hours every day, all week long. Folks, for over a decade here in Philadelphia, standing strong, fighting for us. Conservative talker, we love you, Chris Stigall. Philadelphia's Morning Answer with Chris Stigall.
How are you, everybody? How about this guy all the way from the swamp? How about another hand for Seb this evening, whatever it is. Well, you know, before we get started, I've been bragging on this place because last year was... How many of you are repeat customers? How many of you were here last year for the first cigar night? Oh, good. Some of you new faces. The one thing that is true about this place is it is, bar none, the coolest cigar bar I've ever seen. I love this place. And we are so grateful. Yes, sir. Oh, okay, we'll get it to him. This is a gift for you. And I don't.
Better be 50 cal. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I hope it's not. It's a cigar humidor. Yes, you did. I still use it. As a matter of fact, it's beautiful. It's not ticking, is it?
Is it from Biden? Is it from Biden?
So before we go forward, I just wanted to say that there are a family of tremendous brothers that have built this place and have made this place special and have been our hosts now for 2 years running, and I hope for many, many more. I want to welcome Paul up to the stage. Paul Scipione and his brothers. Could you give a hand to the Scipione brothers who have been... And so, Paul, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much. Just a little certificate for our thanks for your participation again this year, and we thank you so much for all that you do. You want to say a word?
I just want to say thank you guys for coming. I mean, it's the second year now, and it's a blast. So we love having you all here, and I'm a listener. I love you guys.
Buy more cigars.
That's right.
That too.
Where do people buy cigars? Online?
Online at AtlanticCigar.com if you can't get to the retail store here. And again, I love having you guys here.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thank you, brother. The Scipione. All right. You want a picture? Ed, we got one? Did we get one? Okay, we're good? Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you very, very much. Well, listen, thank you again for being here tonight. And Seb he's driving back tonight, so we're going to be mindful that I've got a lot of questions, and I want to make sure, like I said, I want to focus on your questions tonight. But I will ask one question that I know has been on all of our minds here lately, and that is the subject, and we talked about this a little bit with the VIPs a minute ago, so sorry for the redundancy, but I think everybody's curious about it. Seb, is Donald Trump going to go to jail? Is this judge going to jail Donald Trump?
Right, so I said in the little gathering earlier, this guy is one of the hardest working guys in radio. He actually works for a living. I don't do any show prep. I cheat. My two friends have amazing radio shows before me. I have the afternoon shift. So for 3 hours in the morning, I listen to Chris Plant in DC. And then I catch about an hour of Dan Bongino, who's a friend of mine. And Dan said today on his show, he said, I hope Donald Trump defies that stinking judge and goes to jail. And you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this. I think Dan's right. Because if this judge thinks he can take away the First Amendment rights of the leader of the opposition who's a former president. President Trump needs to show the world what the Democrats have become. Keep talking, keep posting, and dare him to put him in an orange jumpsuit. Because if they do, that's it. He's won.
I like it. I like it. I got you all on video. How about a harump for the video? Out of curiosity, how many of you are harumpers in the room? Just out of curiosity. Look at that, the loyal harumpers. God bless you. Not too late, by the way. Shameless plug. Mother's Day sale, $30 for the whole year, Seb.
No, I think first they should get my wife's new book.
Well, we're always selling something.
Next Gen Marxism just came out.
Katie Gorka.
Came out. We have one box full of signed copies for you available in the back. But if you want to know what the left has become, you got to read Katie's book.
Did you guys hear Katie on the show? A couple of, I guess it was last week, 2 weeks ago, we invited her on the show. She's fantastic. That's a great, great book. Okay, so with that in mind, I asked you the other question, which is, does Trump, given what you just said, do you think Trump's almost asking for it, almost goading them to put him in jail?
Well, look what happened yesterday, right? He was there in court. The judge fined him a 10th time and said, I hope I don't have to put you in jail. And then he comes out and he just starts talking about the judge again. So I think it might happen tomorrow. Who knows?
Let me get right to these questions, because there's quite a few of them. Why has a higher court, and this is, I didn't ask you this actually a little bit ago, why hasn't a higher court already stepped in during this outrageous case of lawfare? Where are the higher courts? And I'll piggyback with that and ask you, where do you think the Supreme Court comes down on the immunity case?
I don't like to take anything for granted in today's America. As you said earlier, when you see armed agents of the FBI raid the home of the former president, anything is possible. So I'm not, the Supreme Justice is not a conservative. We've got at least one of our appointees who's a little wobbly, who I'm talking about. If they're sane, they say, of course, a president has immunity, because if you don't have immunity, you can't be president. Every day, you'd have court cases brought against you, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, right? The nation chooses a president. The president has to be president for 4 years or 8 years. So logically, they have to say, of course, a president has immunity. I don't know. Where are the other higher courts? Look, God willing, if we do our part and he wins, we have a plan, I have a plan for what to do with the deep state, but we have a much longer burn issue, and that's judges. Judges are appointed for life, and as we saw after 2020, most of them didn't have the testicular fortitude to hear any of the cases that Rudy brought. You'll hear the MSM talking point, well, Donald Trump lost 63 cases of election fraud in 2021. No, that's garbage. The judges refused to actually hear the evidence. You don't lose a case when you're not allowed to present the evidence. So we have to do something about these judges. I love Louis Gohmert, who's a former judge. He's a hero of mine. Louis Gohmert says the Constitution is quite clear. The Congress can impeach judges. If you're not doing your job as a judge, you can be removed from office. Happens very rarely, but we might have to do a bit of that if and when we win.
Fill in the blank. House Speaker Mike Johnson is?
A nice guy, truly, and he's weak.
Weak.
But I agree with my friends on our side who say getting rid of him 6 months before an election is insanity. It is absolute freaking insanity. And I don't trust MTG after she flip-flopped on Kevin McCarthy. I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just a fact.
Why?
Why? Because she was hardcore MAGA, and then she supported things that she didn't support in the past. Why? Because Nancy had taken her off the committees, and we know what that means. If you're not on committee in Congress, you're a nobody, right?
Right.
So she wanted to be back on committee, and so she changed her views. I don't like that, right? Your views shouldn't change because you want to be near the trough.
What percentage of House Republicans do you believe are sincerely, genuinely country-first, conservative Republicans? How many of them? Percentage?
You know the answer to this question. 'Cause
I do,
I told this story. So about 5 years ago, I got to know Matt Gaetz. We need more Matt Gaetzes. Matt Gaetz is what we need. And Matt Gaetz, because he is an inveterate troublemaker, decided to invite me to the members' dining room of Congress. When I walked in there, the Democrats, they needed new nappies. It was hilarious, right? Gorka walks into the congressional dining room. And I'm sitting there with Matt, and I said to him, look, Matt, I've worked in the White House, but I've never worked in Congress. I'm just a radio host now. And as an outsider, as a taxpayer, it looks really bad to me. The GOP on the Hill looks really bad. You're in the trenches, how bad is it? And this is Matt's response. Of everybody on Capitol Hill with a letter R behind their name, 20% or less actually believe that they have to represent their constituents. The other 40% are stupid failures who couldn't function in the private sector, right? That's why they call DC Hollywood for ugly people, right? And the other 40% are interested in one thing and one thing alone. Direct quote. They want the leadership position in Congress that comes with the black SUV, the security detail, and the office with the fireplace. 40% of our quote-unquote Republicans want the black SUV and the office with the fireplace. That's how bad it is.
Question, this was something that came up during the Pennsylvania primary. It had a lot of people very wound up, and I understand why, but I also understand it. Nikki Haley was on the ballot in Pennsylvania because she's suspended the campaign. I think a lot of people felt she shouldn't even be on the ballot. But she was, and it was not illegal for Nikki Haley to be on the ballot, but somebody's asking about that. Shouldn't she be eliminated from the ballot? The answer is no, she couldn't be. But 150,000 votes went to her in that primary. Does that concern you?
No, because most of the people who voted for her were either re-registered Democrats or never Trumpers who are never going to vote for President Trump. I mean, you have to think of the fact that her donors were people who hate President Trump. So who is Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley is the swamp. That's all she is. And also, she has no moral fiber. Do you remember her chief talking point for all those months on the campaign? Do you remember she'd start every debate with, well, you know, he brings chaos with him, and they're going after him, and rightly or wrongly, and you go, excuse me? She kept using this phrase, rightly or wrongly, they're going after him. Well, which is it?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you have an opinion? Because if it's right, then you have to say, oh, he is a rapist, philanderer, criminal. And if it's wrong, you should be fighting it, standing down and supporting him. So she's so stupid, she actually says, well, rightly or wrongly. I mean, that's who she is.
There can't be a single Republican who isn't clear that what's happening to Donald Trump is wrong and it can't stand. You can't say anything less. And if there is a single Republican that isn't capable of saying what is happening to Donald Trump is wrong, if they stop anywhere short of that, I can't trust them ever again. That's my conclusion, whoever they are.
You did a monologue on your show last year where you expressed it better than anyone I've ever heard, where you said, this is an honor issue. Whether you support President Trump is an actual honor issue. Why? Because of everything they've done to him for 7 years.
It's not even about him anymore.
No.
It's about, I mean, we're Honduras all of a sudden,
It's about principles. I was at Mar-a-Lago on the day he announced, November 2022. And I knew what he was going to say. It was not a surprise. There were 900 of us in the ballroom, you know, all hardcore MAGA. And I know the guy. I've been alone with him in the Oval Office. But even for me, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch the video. It's one of his best speeches. It's only about 40 minutes long. It's his relaunch of his campaign. And I'm standing there as a guy who served in the White House for that man. And halfway through the speech, it's like somebody punched me in the solar plexus. like a gut punch. And I went to put my head in my hands, and I said, dear God, he's doing it again. And it struck me. That man, who's been called a Islamophobe, misogynist, white supremacist, and literally a Nazi, the only president to recognize Jerusalem and move the embassy, he's the anti-Semite. The guy who lost at least $1 billion while he was in office, didn't take a paycheck, had his wife and his children attacked, had the FBI, the CIA, the NSA come after him. He's running again? Is he insane? And that's when you realize there's only one reason he's doing this. He doesn't do it for the money because he literally lost $1 billion. He's not doing it for fame because his last name was an international brand before he ran, right? So he's not doing it for money. He's not doing it for fame. So why is he doing it? One reason. He loves America. He loves it so much, he's prepared to go to jail for us. And that's why your monologue was on the money. We owe it to him to make sure he wins. It's really that simple. It's a question of our honor.
By the way, this next question is kind of funny, but maybe he's not meaning to be funny. Ernie asks, how many feds do you think are here tonight?
Well, is anybody wearing...
Show of hands, how many feds?
Is anybody wearing the federal issue chinos with the Lacoste short-sleeve golfing shirt, which is either Fed or Lincoln Project? You could spot them a mile off, right?
But you know who is here tonight? A couple of Conshahocken's finest are here tonight, making sure everybody stays safe wherever they are.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Just say that word again. I love the way you say that.
Conshohocken.
Conshohocken. I just love that.
Conshohocken. Spent a lot of time in Conshohocken this week. I've enjoyed it too. Love this place. Among the many challenges that we face, the unelected bureaucracy seems to be an increasing and insatiable threat. How does President Trump or any of us address this? Big question.
I had a plan for this. I had a plan for this first month of the administration.
We were just talking a little about this. If in fact Trump were to get back in again, and if you had anything to do with it, we were talking about this, weren't we?
And I had a recommendation. I was not listened to, and then Mike Flynn was fired, then Bannon was fired, and then I had to leave. How do you change the culture of an institution? Short of firing everyone, I mean, it's the biggest employer in the world. We've literally got millions of employees in federal government. Short of firing everyone and replacing them with 2 million patriots, there's only one way I've ever seen. And it's not changing the leadership, right? You can put a new attorney general in, you can put a new director of the CIA. That doesn't change the culture of an institution. There's only one way. And this is what I said a month into the administration. We know that this governmental workforce is filled with thousands of people who are effective traitors. And we need to make an example of a handful of them. We need to go in within the first 30 days and identify 2-3 people at each agency, from the CIA to the Department of Agriculture, I mean every agency, who have demonstrably committed felonies. Whether it's targeting Catholics in Virginia because they go to Latin Mass, whether it's giving top secret telephone transcripts from the president to the Washington Post. We arrest them, we put them in leg irons, and we perp walk them past the CNN cameras in front of that department's front entrance. You can't get rid of everyone, but you change the culture by saying, if you do what these guys do, you lose your pension, and you'll likely go to prison. We don't do what they do, which is make up stuff and charge you. We actually get the worst of the worst, and we put them in court in handcuffs.
And I asked you when we were talking about this, the Attorney General would be a key figure in that thing. And before I ask you who specifically, I think the thing that many people are critical of Donald Trump's first administration is, how were so many picks so wrong? What happened? Why were there so many that now look in the rearview mirror like disasters?
what are you good at doing? You're good at radio, right?
Well, that's questionable, but yeah. Depends on who you ask.
If you were told tomorrow, right,
Yeah.
to become CEO
Oh, sure.
of, Tesla,
Yeah.
would you have a lot of people you know who are good engineers and know about flights to Mars?
Yeah, no.
Right.
I'd have to trust other people to tell me who's good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said this when I was in the White House, and I said it frequently afterwards. And this is I'm not being hyperbolic. I can give you the names. I went to work the day after the inauguration. It was a Saturday, right? But I don't drink, so I wasn't hungover. I went to all the balls, but I said, it's January 21st. I'm the deputy to the president. I'm going to work as a legal immigrant. It was the most mind-blowing thing. I'm walking around the White House as deputy to the president. That doesn't happen in any other country. That's America. And I said, of people of my rank, right? I was a deputy assistant. That's outranks a 4-star. So senior guys of everyone, the president gets to appoint 4,000 presidential appointees. Of everyone, there were less than 20 of us who were senior and were MAGA, who understood why the American people chose an outsider and what America First meant. Less than 20. I called it an insurgency. We were a band of brothers, and that's why it was easy to pick us off one by one. Because why would Donald Trump, a real estate mogul and a reality TV star, know who should run the CIA?
So once bitten, twice shy. Fool me once, shame on you, right? So is he goes into this now eyes wide open.
And I'm not here to give you that kind of feel-good, rose-tinted answer. I'll be brutally honest with you. My friend Chris Plant has said for 10 years now, one of the most effective things the left has succeeded in doing is guaranteeing that decent patriots would never work in a conservative administration, let alone a Trump administration. I mean, look, it's not about me, but they came after me, and that's fine. I'm a proxy for the president. You can come after me and call me names. But when they go after my wife, and when they go after my children, one journalist who wrote 52 hit pieces on me in 3 months wrote an article naming my 18-year-old son, high school-age son, with his name and the headline, Paul Gorka, traitor, right? In the headline. What normal person says, yeah, I'm going to do that job, right? You have to be a lunatic or you have to love America so much that you say, okay, bring it. My family understands, I've briefed them, and I'm going in. This is the age where, we need to have heroic individuals realize the future of the... Look, if they do half of what they've said they're going to do, if they lower the voting age to 16, if they pack the Supreme Court, if they naturalize and give citizenship to at least the 16 million illegals they've led in the last 3 years, kiss America goodbye. I'm not here to make you feel good. Kiss it goodbye. And that's why I say every day on my show, it's not enough to listen to me or Chris or Dennis or anyone else. If you're not actively, politically working to get Donald Trump reelected, you're actually working for Biden. I told this story about my wife. My wife is not like you guys. You guys are all freaks, right? Because you love politics. Most Americans are not political. I told my wife for a decade, you need to be in politics, because unlike me, you've got low blood pressure, you're not aggressive, you could be successful, right? And she said, are you kidding me? Politics is disgusting. Why would I get involved in that? For 10 years, I was needling her. And then she comes 3 years ago, amidst the COVID, she says, I'm running for the local community center board. What? You mean you're asking my permission? I mean, you've read St. Paul's letter about, wives and husbands and, you're asking my advice. He said, no, I've got the 100 signatures, I'm running. I said, what do you mean you hate politics? Why are you running? So, because they had a drag queen story hour at the library a mile from our home, and that's not happening where I live. Okay, that was 3 years ago. Since then, she failed. She ran again. She won. She became an election worker. Now she's the chief election officer for our district. She runs the election, right? And as of last month, this just blows my mind, She is the GOP chair for the biggest county in the Commonwealth of Virginia. If my wife, by the book, no, seriously, if my wife, who hates politics, is so vested in the salvation of America, no American who's breathing and has a pulse has an excuse. I don't care how old you are. I don't care whether you're bedridden. You can make phone calls for candidates in Texas. You can be not. My wife, for the last election, hand wrote 18,000 postcards to Catholics in Virginia to get out the vote, right? It's our country. Donald Trump is incredible. I don't know how he does what he does, but he's one man. America is not his problem to fix. It's our problem to fix.
And I will add, if I could brag on my wife, who is also not political and never wanted anything to do with it, much less a microphone like this. 4 years ago when they shut down our schools, she was one of the first in line to go speak at a school board meeting, and that's how it started with her. And today, she co-hosts a podcast with me where we encourage parents to explore private Christian education and get the hell out of public school. And she was a former public school teacher. And so my wife has dedicated her life and time now to encouraging other public school teachers to make a move into private Christian school, educate other mothers and fathers that it's not just about, by the way, the alternative to public school is not a $100,000 a year Hogwarts blazer with the emblem on it. I mean, we really have to stop that. It is, and I want everybody to know that. Like it's not public school or penny loafers and $100,000 a year. It's not that. And my wife has made it her passion now to be an evangelist on Christian school, or at a bare minimum, homeschooling, homeschool pods. I hope people will look into it because, as we were just talking about, that is where this changes. We've got 2 generations at least of little Marxists that have been raised in public school. I mean, we've got a lot of undoing to do, Seb.
And as I said previously, Americans need to understand it's very cool to work in the White House, it's cool to be a senator, but American power is in the community. Who runs America? It's not the president. It's the county commissioner. It's the school board, right? It's the registrar. The Democrats learnt this 30 years ago, and we just kind of, as George Soros funded local, what is the richest man in the world who broke the Bank of England? What the heck is he doing funding local DA races?
Smart.
Right?
Smart.
That's how you steal America. It's our job to take it back. Running for school board is probably the greatest thing you can do for America. Because what did Lenin understand? What did Hitler understand? Give me a child for 4 years, I will own that country for the rest of my tenure.
We just saw it on college campuses all last week, didn't we?
We are Hamas, from the river to the sea, death to America. Those are American citizens.
Yeah. Trump's VP pick. Everybody's really obsessed with this. You've shared this with me. I didn't allude to it other than you had shared it with me, and then you went on your show and said it anyway. So
I didn't. I didn't give the name away.
Oh, you did not?
I did not.
Okay, I thought you had. Do you? So you don't want to tonight?
No.
Okay, I won't.
I believe in secrets, okay?
All right.
But it could change.
Here's what we know. It won't be Kristi Noem.
It will not be Kristi Noem, and I hope it won't be RFK Jr. either.
Well, let's talk about him for a minute. That's interesting. We've swerved into RFK Jr. Now, what do you make of that guy? He's a liberal. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But he's interesting to a lot of people I have heard who voted Trump. And it's okay. We're not going to attack you. How many of you are sincerely, I'll just say interested. How many of you are interested in RFK Jr.? I don't mean you're going to vote for him, but you find him interesting. You'll listen to him. It's okay. I bet there are more of you that'll not admit it, but probably feel that way. Interesting, yes. He's getting some traction. I mean, he just is. So is that smart of Trump to be mindful of that and figure out why he's gaining traction?
I'll tell you why he's getting traction. Why is the only reason anybody on our side pays attention to him? I'll tell you why. One reason. COVID, right? Now, why is anybody... The only reason they're paying attention to him, really, because a lot of people say what he says about COVID. Lots of people say it. Why does anybody pay attention? The real reason, his last name, right? And a Kennedy who's not just a Kennedy, I'll be brutal here, he's a lunatic. I mean, he is straight up a lunatic. Not just, I know who killed my uncle. No, you don't, okay? But when he says, if you deny climate change, we should be able to put you in prison. You can look that up right now. He said, we should be able to imprison you if you doubt climate change. I don't want that guy anywhere near politics, right? Now, I've watched the new documentary. Salem has it on our website. He is a very interesting guy. I mean, think about it. This guy, after his father was assassinated, dropped out, became a junkie, and rode on rail cars. He was a hobo. Which is pretty, to go from that to being this massively successful environmentalist and now a presidential candidate, it's fascinating, but he's still a lunatic.
I have it on authority that he's interested in spending quite a bit of money in venues like ours. And we'll cash the checks, by the way. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We'll cash the checks.
Look, I think he is the left's Ross Perot. So God bless him, right? I mean, I was here for that election. I was here as a tourist. And Ross Perot is a great patriot, God rest his soul. I mean, what he did in Iran and saving our hostages. But he gave us Bill Clinton. Let's be very clear. He split the vote and gave us Bubba, right? So if he splits the vote with my mother-in-law, her generation died in the will Democrats, he's a Kennedy. Good! The more Democrats like him, the better. But he's not a conservative.
This we kind of touched on. You mentioned the Supreme Court. Joe Manchin, who will be stepping down, and that seat will go Republican most certainly, prevented the Senate from eliminating the filibuster, thus preventing D.C., Puerto Rico, and other territories from becoming states, preventing Supreme Court from expanding. So will they try this again? I have no doubt they would try it again if they control the Senate. I feel better about the Senate than I do anything else right now. You?
I hate...
In the future.
I only allow 3 senators on my show because the rest of them are putzes. I mean, really, every single senator thinks they're going to be the president. And they act like it. And think about it. Name me, and this goes for the House and the Senate, name me a politician who has done what needs to be done when it comes to them bringing 730 years of penal sentences against the leader of their party. You should be the only thing you should be talking about is the border and the fact they want to put the Republican nominee in prison. What have the Republicans in the Senate done? Well, what if, apart from 6 good guys in the House, this should be the issue. I mean, the State Department just wrote a letter to Venezuela or somewhere saying, don't try and put your opposition leader in prison. That's wrong. Do you know what your boss Biden is doing? I can't believe I'm actually saying this. The leader of the opposition, who is a former president, is facing 730 years in prison. Not in Venezuela, here. And what are the Republicans doing about it? Nothing.
John Fetterman.
Please, I was having a pleasant evening.
John Fetterman is, I don't want to say to his credit, but I have to say a little bit to his credit, seems to be the only Democrat willing to say, stand with Israel, for instance. John Fetterman seems to be willing to say we've got a problem that the population of Pittsburgh is crossing the southern border every month. The guy says things all of a sudden, and I don't know if it's post-stroke, I don't know what it is, but it shocks a lot of us. Others have said, no, this has always been his populism, this is who he is, he's a populist guy. Bob Casey's up for re-election. That guy never talks. I call him, what about Bob Casey? We never see him. I don't know what he's up to. I don't trust John Fetterman ultimately. He's been supported by progressives and lunatics who are mad at him now for the things he said publicly. How do we read John Fetterman, and how do we consider him as we go into a Senate race here across the Commonwealth with Trump on the ballot?
We don't. This is a weird illness we suffer from on the right. That somebody who's been kicking our dog for 5 years comes over and offers us a bud.
Right.
Like, you've been kicking my dog for years and you offer me a beer. I couldn't care less, right? I mean, we judge them on a whole. He's a communist who lived in his parents' basement. The fact that for some reason, I don't know why, he understands that the war in Israel is a civilizational war against Jews and Christians. Okay, that's fine, but that doesn't make him less of a communist. Maybe his great-granddad was Jewish. I have no idea.
Yeah.
You can't excuse a whole life pattern because on one fraction of 1% he's doing the right thing. He's still a commie.
It's a strange hill to die on, of all the hills to die on.
I don't understand it.
Israel.
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Who are the 3 senators you have on the show?
I love Marsha Blackburn.
From Tennessee?
Yeah, I love J.D. Vance.
Ohio?
There's one more. Who's another decent one? I've had Rand Paul. I disagree with him on libertarianism, but I've had him on the show.
There are 2 pretty outstanding senators from Missouri, I will say, Hawley and Schmidt. You like them?
They're okay. They're not rhinos.
No.
Ted Cruz, yeah. Ted Cruz is okay. Cotton is just a weird fish for me. He gives me the heebie-jeebies. He's he's a great service record and everything else, but he's like that weird kid at school, isn't he? He's just a little bit hinky, right?
I was that kid.
And another guy who thinks he's going to be president.
Yeah.
You're not. I'm sorry. Tom Cotton, you're not going to be president. You've got to have the Q factor.
He thinks he's going to be vice president.
Yes, he does.
He thinks he's going to be vice. Yeah, they're all auditioning to be Veep right now.
Yes.
That's why all the books. Do you think Christine Ohm read or wrote the
No, of
book?
course not.
She didn't write it.
He wasn't on Botox, so no.
That's not nice.
Come on, does she not creep you out like the Instagram influencer who thinks she's a governor? I mean, really, she's like a TikTok influencer. I mean, those ads when she pretends she's a plumber, they creep me out. Am I not allowed to be honest?
No, but I don't think it's too late to ask. Rump, yeah. Okay, how about this one? This is a meaty one. You ready?
Yeah.
In current politics, I see so many people who only see things from a tribal perspective. They are either Democrat or Republican, only watch the news that supports their perspective, and will only talk to people who support their viewpoints. How do you propose we change the cultural norm and promote dialogue between the polarization that we see in America today?
Utterly, completely pointless. That question has no understanding of what the Democrat Party has become.
So whoever you are, thanks and good night.
But buy some cigars on your way out, all right? And my wife's book.
Paul's like, I'm trying to move product.
Because then you'll understand. Read my wife's book and you'll understand. I mean, seriously, can we just stop here? What reasonable, let's just go down this rabbit hole. What reasonable discussion are you going to have with somebody who thinks Leah Thomas is a girl? I mean, just wake up and smell the coffee grinds. They're literally, the Democrat Party is collectively toking Hunter Biden's crack pipe, right? There are no, name for me, look, I hate Bill Clinton, he's a slime bag. But at least he was relatively sane, right? There's no way that Bill Clinton would have allowed what's happening to death to America.
Well, he believed in law and order. I mean, Democrats used to actually
controlled
believe in law and
immigration.
order. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have to understand the Democrat Party is now the radical, Jew-hating, America-hating party. It is the home of institutionalized America hatred. Please just if you take one thing away tonight, 2 things. Number 1, if you're not politically working, you're working for Biden, right? Number 1. Number 2, you have to understand that the other side is not the Democrat Party of JFK or Scoop Jackson. It's gone. There are no normal people left in that party.
They're a death cult.
Yeah. No, this is, look, I'm a big sci-fi wonk, all right? I was 7 years old when Star Wars came out. I watched, reruns of Star Trek every day on British television. Next generation Star Trek, the scariest enemy is the Borg, right? The Democrat Party is the Borg. It is a hive mind collective. How is it there's one guy who's pro-life, One Democrat who's pro-life who was just charged yesterday with corruption by Biden's DOJ, Cuellar. One Democrat who's pro-life and pro-border security is going to be locked away. That's the Democrat Party. You can't reason with people who think a grown-ass hairy man can go to my daughter's changing room and have his tackle. Leah Thomas was changing with his penis out in front of young girls on his swim team in the locker room. And the Democrats say, well, that's diversity. I'm sorry, you cannot have a discussion with people who are in a cult. And it's not my job to deprogram them. We have to talk to the people in the middle who aren't insane. Most elections are won in the middle. And the most important thing you can take away, the second most important thing you can take away today is these letters, we use them every day, talk radio and media, Republican and Democrat. Delete them. There's no R and there's no D. Delete these categories from your mind. There's one dividing line in modern America. Do you love America, warts and all, or do you hate it? We are living in the most perverse time in Western civilization. It's not just about America. Look at what's happening in the UK and elsewhere. This is the most perverse time in human recorded history, the last 6,000 years. Our elites hate their own civilization. This isn't Dr. G talking, it's the Democrats. What did Obama say just before the inauguration? We are 5 days away from fundamentally changing our country. You do not love that which you wish to fundamentally change. Try it with your wife, try it with your husband. I love you, Jimmy, but I'm going to fundamentally change you, right? Don't go there. They believe America is the problem. We're too white, we're too Christian, we're too male, and we must be brought to our knees. I cannot have a discussion with somebody who hates America because I chose this nation. I chose it to become its citizen for one reason and one reason alone. It is the greatest country on earth. And I want to hear from you, right? Because I get this a lot. My son, who's now graduated, an amazing figure of a man.
Iron Man.
He's an Ironman. He just ran his first triathlon last weekend. And he survived with my last name at Stanford for 4 years. So that's right. And I got this from him during COVID. He was at home and we had a lot of cigars together. And he said, Dad, you got to try and reach out to the other side. Why don't you have Nancy Pelosi on your show and talk to her? And I said, my job is to keep you guys motivated. My job is to make sure the people who get it win it for America. I cannot have a discussion with somebody who wants to put my boss in prison. Why don't you answer that question about the other side?
I will say first that I genuinely believe that if you don't have the love of Jesus Christ in your life, you're not going anywhere. That's first. That's the only way you're going to get through it. It's the only way you're going to get through it. I'm sorry. And I don't mean to evangelize, but this is
do it, brother.
It's biblical. It's the biblical. We're living through biblical hell. I mean, we are. This is not. It's not unprecedented. And I know that most people aren't church attendees anymore. I know that, and I don't mean to push it, but I believe in my heart and soul that until we kind of fundamentally understand and get square with our Creator, I'm not. Those are people that I can't have a discussion with, and they're not exclusive to the left.
I thought you were dodging the question.
Dodging the question, yeah. So that's where I start by encouraging people to get right with the Lord. Find it in the book. But can you
But if they think Christianity is bad, is evil, is wrong, all cultures are equal,
that's right.
I can't have that discussion with that person.
Having said that, I will say you've got to fight like hell to protect and defend those institutions that we value, like my church. And when my church closed during COVID because it was run by a bunch of progressives, I said, then we're out. we're leaving. The United Methodist Church is having a massive cultural split right now, and I don't mean to evangelize, but folks, the reality is this is a huge cultural problem. It's part of what he's saying, because the moral fiber of the country is being ripped asunder at the same time, which is why you have governors who will say openly that we can kill a delivered baby on a delivery room table. I mean, that is the stuff that's straight out of the pit of hell. And you're right. At that point, the death cult term, I mean, when we've reached that point, when there is just no sanctity of human life that we can respect, when we've reached a point where we're raiding a former president's home, it feels as though we've reached a point of no return. And so I don't mean that we're passive by any means when I say turn to God, but we should fight like hell. But
I want people
can you reason with it? I know you can't reason with it.
And I want everybody to be, crystal on this, and I think probably everybody in this room is. Jesus was not a beatnik. He wasn't a peacenik. Let's be clear. It was the 70s. It was Jesus Christ Superstar. There was a cultural propaganda to turn him into a long-haired hippie. He wasn't, right? When he said, sell everything you own, buy a sword, when he turned over the money changers' tables in the temple, that's Jesus. Jesus is, turn the other cheek was a metaphor. It wasn't a tactical instruction. We are fighting for truth, and they deny the existence of truth.
And I will just tell you that one of the gentlemen who I was just with yesterday at his annual luncheon, I was talking about this on the show this morning, if you heard it, Brad Lacey, Pastor Brad Lacey, he hosted me at a lunch yesterday, and I was talking to him about my church closing during COVID, and he said, Chris, throughout that entire time, we never shut our doors, not one time. That's Pastor Lacey right there. Raise your hand. And I'll tell you, it's men like him, it's men of faith, it's men in the pulpit who are going to be a huge, huge, huge part of this battle.
But it's also every single one of us. I mean, I am shocked, and I was depressed as an immigrant who chose America to see what happened under COVID. That some
horrifying
short little Nazi called Fauci said, unless you're Walmart or Amazon, you can't feed your kids, you can't feed your employees, you shut your business down. And apart from, the gym owner in New Jersey and the female restaurant owner in California, we just said, okay, St. Anthony, we won't feed our employees. That's just un-American. And it will have to be church leaders or new church plantings that respond to that. But it's everybody in this room. It's our millions of listeners.
But it's, yeah.
If you put a yard sign out that has, I have the yard sign on my website you can buy that has his booking photograph, right, from Fulton County, right, his mugshot. You put that on your lawn, and you will be a catalyst. There will be people who say, oh, he thinks that's wrong too, right? I remember I went to a MAGA gala. I was the speaker in Northern Virginia. This isn't GOP, this is MAGA at a nice country club. Not my thing, but I went to give the speech. And I arrived a bit late, so I had to park at the back of the car park. And I had to walk through the whole car park to the club. And I saw one battered old Ford that had covered in Trump stickers. Everything else was Mercedes, BMW, and this was the MAGA event for this part of Northern Virginia. And as I gave my speech, I said, I find it really weird that apart from my Mustang and that car, there were no Trump stickers on any vehicles in this car park. And this woman says, well, my Mercedes might get keyed. And I thought, so saving the Republic is less important than your Mercedes getting keyed? Get some damn perspective, woman. I'm sorry. We have to understand the enormity of the situation. One woman came up to me at another event and said, hey, Dr. G, can I get a selfie? And I always say, yes, sure, absolutely. It doesn't cost me anything. Let's have a selfie. And then I said to her the same thing I say to almost everyone. Hey, don't forget to tag me when you post it on Facebook. You know what she said? Suddenly her expression changed. And she said, oh, I can't do that. Northern Virginia is so Democrat, and my husband's self-employed. I can't post it. Now, an hour later, Katie gave a speech, and I gave my speech. And I didn't embarrass this woman. I didn't point her out and didn't use her name. But I said, I told the story in front of everybody at this ball. You know, you know this. There are moments when you aren't speaking. The big man upstairs literally plugs the USB in your cranium, and words just come out. And I said to these MAGA voters, if you're not prepared to stand up publicly for the values you espouse privately, you do not hold those values. I'm sorry. You simply don't. And then another phrase was downloaded, and I said, if you're not prepared to fight, you don't deserve to win. I mean, this isn't rocket science. How can you say, I stand for this, I stand for this, I stand for this, I stand for truth, I stand for America, but you won't tag a photograph with the guy that you were so excited to get a selfie with? Then you're a coward. I'm sorry.
I can't disagree. I have had a perspective in the last few years that life is too short and things are too important to hide about it anymore.
Yeah.
That includes my faith, that includes my politics. There's no use in hiding about it.
I was in New Hampshire. We summer in New Hampshire, and I was doing a campaign event for a great candidate, General Baldock. And the Q&A, I love this that we didn't give any speeches, we went straight to the questions, because that's the most interesting for me, for Chris, and for you guys. And this nurse stood up in the Q&A, and of course the trans thing came up, which I think is going to be really good for us. And she said, Dr. G, I work in a hospital, and we do abortions and transgender surgeries. What do I do as a nurse? And again, the download was, dropped. And I said the following, Madam, I know it's your job. I know you have to feed your children. But when you're standing before God, who is going to answer for your life's decisions? Will it be the director of the hospital? Will it be the surgeon who orders you to scrub in for that abortion? No, they will not be with you in heaven. You will be answering for your decisions. And it's hard to hear, but that is the fact of life. And the sooner you internalize that, you'll actually be very peaceful inside.
Yes.
You will find an inner peace.
So well said. So well said. It's interesting. A listener I know who won tickets tonight, Tanya from Trapp, Pennsylvania. Tanya, where are you, by the way? Hi, Tanya. Nice to see you in person. Glad you came. Is there somebody that came further than Trapp today? I didn't ask. Who came the furthest? Where?
Yeah, we came from right around Medford, New Jersey.
Medford, New Jersey. Anybody beat Medford? Shamong. Piccalilli in. Reading. All right, that was a pretty good distance. Thank you for the travel. That was, I really appreciate that.
I came from Washington.
Yeah.
What do I get?
My admiration.
Sorry, Virginia.
Okay, so yeah, everybody wants to know this. Who would you pick as VP, Seb? They want to know who you and I would pick as VP. I know exactly who I would love to see as VP. I've said this from the very beginning. There's one person I would
As
love.
an individual, so you may have noticed in the last 7 years, for me, loyalty is a big deal. The most loyal individual who I'd love to reward, but he's the wrong pick, is Dr. Ben Carson. What Dr. Ben Carson, what I'm saying about it's an honor issue to get President Trump reelected, I just stole from him. He gives these speeches all the time. It is a matter of personal honor that that man is reelected. And if you have honor, that's your job to get him reelected. So I'd love to see him back, although, two 70-year-olds at the top of the ticket may be a bit of a stretch. I love Byron Donalds. He could be great. Who would you like?
Sarah Huckabee
Yes!
Sanders.
Yes! 1,000%. An utter... I had an issue.
I think she's one of the most important people in the country.
Let me tell you a story about Sarah. So the president is mind-numbing. I mean, just incredible. I went back to interview him in the White House 2 years after I left the administration. This is for my second book. And this is just stunning. I had literally put 1 foot into the Oval. I'm 35 feet away from the Resolute desk. And he'd met my wife. My wife was a presidential appointee, but she worked at the Department of Homeland Security. So she'd met the president twice at the Christmas parties. Well, that was it. I'd literally put 1 foot in the Oval, and he says, "Seb, how's Katie doing?" Thank you, sir, very well. So, first thing. And then, halfway through the interview, he goes, "Hey, is there anything I can do for you?" And my wife was still in the administration, and she was having issues with the deep state, right? Technical stuff I don't need to go into. And he said, "Really? That's happening at DHS to Katie?" He immediately ordered Sarah Huckabee in and said, "Sarah, this is happening to Katie. Fix it." Less than 24 hours later, it was fixed. That's Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Awesome. I'll be spending some time with her late summer, early fall, talking about, she's one of 12 governors that have gone statewide with universal school choice. And by the way, I think that's the way, but that's for another conversation. Okay, yeah, this is one I hear a lot. Will there be another pandemic? Will there be another bird flu? Will they try to shut us down again before the election, Zip?
And as I said previously, anything is possible in the age of, the modern Democrat Party. It's not out of the question, but even if it does occur, without Nancy Pelosi in charge in the House, it will not be the same.
Do you think we're as polite about it the next time?
No.
If there's a next
absolutely
time?
not. Absolutely. The idea that everything shuts down and you wear a mask, not happening.
Donald Trump is often criticized, and I heard this a lot. I heard this specifically, I don't mean to open a wound here, but I heard a lot from, I hate to even do this because I know what you're going to do. I'm going to pull your string and you're going to make people mad.
He just loves to get me in trouble.
Because I know there are people here that like what I'm about to say, and then you're going to get them mad, all right? So don't get mad at me.
Get mad at me.
Get mad at him. Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this room may be even preferred that Ron DeSantis be the nominee. And people
Then you can leave now.
and
Buy cigars.
And people will say and have said that Ron DeSantis did COVID right, and Donald Trump, for all the things he did well, he screwed the pooch on COVID, and I can't forgive that. I've heard that, and you've said it, and you've read it, or you've not said it, you've read it. I've heard conservatives say it. That the shot, he needs to disavow the shot, he needs to admit that was wrong, that it hurt people. He needs to own COVID, and he won't do that, and for some people, they find that unforgivable. So go ahead. Rip into them.
Number one.
Is that a fair criticism, the COVID thing, to Trump?
It is in part, but only because of the phenomenon I explained earlier. Forget trying to take over Tesla. You are brought in to be the CEO to deal with a global pandemic. Would you know what to do, or would you trust the guy who's been the head of the NIH for 37 years? Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
So he thought he could trust the guy who was the highest paid bureaucrat in America. He earned $100,000 more than the president, Fauci did, as a government employee, right? He took home $413,000 a year over our taxpayer money. Forget all the other patents he was making millions of. So he trusted the guys who were in place. Now, was that the right thing to do? No, given who Fauci is, that we now know. But let me just piss off the DeSantis supporters. DeSantis had to write pardons for people who were put in prison in Florida for keeping their businesses open. That's the great governor of Florida, right? He allowed people to go to prison who kept their business. So this stuff that the DeSantis campaign said, the greatest governor, garbage. Go back to early COVID and see what happened when he was governor. Second, I have a bigger issue. And again, we seem to be coming back to this honor question. Ron DeSantis, and I don't know why, is a black hole of honor. And I'm not casting aspersions.
Boy. See what you've done?
Yeah, I'm not casting aspersions on his military career, but it has exactly to do with his military career. Saturday, the indictment of President Trump, the garbage indictment of President Trump drops as a leak from Alvin Bragg's office, Saturday. Monday, DeSantis is holding a press conference on tech development or something, unrelated. In the Q&A, one reporter says, do you have anything to say about the indictment against President Trump? Who, by the way, endorsed him, and without whose endorsement he would not be governor. He was trailing behind Andrew, the agriculture commissioner.
Right.
He was trailing 18 points. 18 points until President Trump endorsed him. And how does he pay him back for that? In that press conference, I will never forget it. He said twice, this is his lack of honor. He made a joke about hush money for porn stars. And then he said the following: I'm just going to do the business of Florida and I'm not going to get involved. Well, someone should have bought that man a fricking map and tell him that Mar-a-Lago is in Florida. It's a citizen of Florida, a former president who made him governor. And I'm not going to get involved. The worst part is, what was his job in the military? He wasn't breaking down doors and killing terrorists. He was a JAG. What's a JAG? A military prosecutor. A former prosecutor doesn't have anything to say about the use of the American judicial system against a former president. That man shouldn't be in the White House ever, as far as I'm concerned. Was that good enough?
Yeah. I think it's your gentleness and subtlety that really warms my heart.
I'm not
Seb.
paid to be nice.
No. Well, now Trump and DeSantis had a little sit down, and they chatted, and they've made friends, and some people even suggest that there could be a unity ticket there. How many of you would like to see Ron DeSantis as the VP pick by Donald Trump? Any of you? None of you? None of you.
Oh! They're on my side.
All right. Seb feels good now. He's got you all on his side. Well, but also
They're just scared of me.
Well, I was going to say, most of them think you're going to punch them if they say otherwise at this point.
Let me get a little bit undiplomatic. Politics in the 21st century is theater, right? It's a TV show.
Yes.
I mean, explain to me otherwise how a man who's never run for any office in his life becomes president the first time he runs. I think it might have to do with the fact Trump, global brand, 14 seasons of the most popular reality TV show in the world. It's theater. I mean, you don't have to like it, you just have to understand it.
And until him, they've always been better at it, by the way, which is why he's so frightening, because he is so familiar,
right,
and so big, right?
Right. And there's a phrase in Hollywood, Q factor, right? It's charisma.
Yeah.
You're right. It's Angelina Jolie, Clint Eastwood. They've got the Q factor. I'm not being nasty here. This is I've met him, right? I tried to help him in his gubernatorial campaign. Talk to anybody who knows him. It's not an insult. I think he's truly on the spectrum. He has no Q. In private meetings with donors, he's a disaster. He doesn't like to talk to people. If he didn't have Casey, who is this stunning woman who works the room, who's vivacious, gracious, he would never have gotten to Congress, let alone considered, for a VP position. We need a guy, you don't have to like it, but the VP has to have some Q, right? It's like Byron Donalds. You've got to excite people. Look at these rallies. President Trump goes to Harlem, and a 10-year-old black kid goes, "We love you, Trump!" And then all the adults say, "We love you, Trump!" That's not because they liked his TV show. It's because charisma. DeSantis has no charisma.
How many of you are going to the Wildwood rally on Saturday? Any of you making that trip? A good number of you. He's coming to South Jersey, Seb.
Big.
Now, Spicer said he thinks that's a waste of time. Spicer said he thinks he needs to spend the valuable time he has going to swing states, that it's not strategic to go to South Jersey. I disagree because I was at the first one, and the thing is huge. And when he says he thinks he has a shot at New York, or he thinks he has a shot at New Jersey. I think he really believes it.
I can't say this enough. Anything is possible in the age of Trump. Anything. And I love Sean. Sean's a friend of mine. But he's also, 30 years a machine guy, right?
Yeah, right.
He's an RNC machine guy.
Yep.
A super funny press spokesman. I love the guy. But he's thinking like politics as usual. There is no politics as usual in the age of Trump. Again, I've played it maybe every day for the last 3 weeks. Harlem shouting, "We love you, Trump." What? I don't think Sean Spicer predicted that, okay?
No.
And I know firefighters. I spent a lot of time with firefighters in New York. I did a whole documentary on 9/11. Firefighters are patriots. They're heroes. But they have to be careful, right? In New York, you're working for the man, right? You're working for, a really Democrat city and state. President Trump delivers those pizzas. Did you listen very carefully to the live audio of him delivering the pizzas? One of the firefighters, it's hard to hear, but one of the firefighters says, "Save us." Name me one politician, not Clinton, not Obama, not even Reagan. Will you find an audio bite where somebody whose job depends on not being political because they could get canned that same day says out loud, "Save us"? That's cute.
You said in the side room conversation a little while ago, and let me ask by a show of hands, how many of you believe Joe Biden will not be the Democrats' nominee by the time we get to the fall?
Wow.
How many of you believe he will be on the ballot this fall? It's about split, I guess, and you seem like maybe you're kind of wavering on that now. You are. You think we could see Biden off the ticket, and if so, does it have to be Cacklebritches, his vice president? Does it have to be her? Because I don't know how how do they get around that if it's not her? And is she not arguably demonstrably worse?
Oh yeah, I mean, remember, she got, 1.8% in the Democrat primary. She could get 2% of Democrats to vote for her. I mean, you have to suck to not get, 2%. So this is not good to admit, as a former strategist to the president and as a, conservative talk show host. This is one issue where I really don't know.
Yeah.
As I said previously, I'm just quoting somebody else, and I was super happy because we want to run against Biden. Biden is just great to run against. After the State of the Union, I was convinced he's locked in, right? They pumped him full of, whatever it was, speed or whatever. And the fact that he didn't literally fall down and, dribble on the podium meant that he was locked in as the candidate. But now, yesterday, Politico or some left-wing rag is leaking the new plan that, the phrase they use, less is more. So he's not going to campaign a lot, and we're going to make the speeches shorter because that's how you win, right? When the Democrat machine realizes they have to hide their candidate, they might do a Bernie Sanders. They might use superdelegates at the convention in Chicago, parachute somebody in like Gavin Newsom or somebody else. But who? Marco?
Cargo, James Cargo.
As candidate? No. The Skeletor will not be the candidate. But your point is the beautiful catch-22. How do you get around the black woman? I mean, your whole party is predicated on DEI, diversity hires. So what, you offer her a Supreme Court ship or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Never happening. Michelle, I guarantee you, I'll take any bet, it's not going to be Michelle.
I agree with that. The Obamas are cashing checks, man. They want the money.
You got
They
$30
love
million
the
from
money.
Netflix. Why would you work?
Yeah. I don't think the Obama... And by the way, they've got all the control they need without lifting a finger anyhow. All of their demagogues are already running the government as it is, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Buttigieg. So you're not.
Has anybody noticed? I'm of a certain excellent vintage. I was born in 1970. Pete Buttigieg is Alfred E. Newman. Have you noticed that? He is the kid from the cover of Mad Magazine. The ears, I mean, everything.
So you study national security. Your national defense is sort of your bailiwick. So what do you identify as the single greatest threat to the United States at this hour?
The Democrat Party.
The Democrat Party.
Look, it's China as an external threat. As an internal threat, it's China, because why do you think the kids are all Marxists? Why do you think China gives, hundreds of millions of dollars to universities across America? Why is, the Biden Center funded by China?
I can't get over the spy balloon. I'll never get over the spy balloon, ever.
Right.
8 days, nothing.
Right.
How does that happen?
Think of two things. Think of the raid on Mar-a-Lago and the spy balloon.
I can't. Those are it.
Those two things.
Those are
okay,
it.
That's it.
Literally, I'm voting spy balloon Mar-a-Lago raid. That is literally the two reasons.
Right.
It's unbelievable. Okay, so China, you say, biggest?
External.
External.
Internal.
More than the border?
It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so the border is multiple actors. If you're Hamas, if you're Hezbollah, if you're ISIS, if you're the cartels, you are pumping tens of thousands of your agents across the border. If you know the border is open, I mean, look, if you listen to my show every Friday, I have a good friend of mine, known him for decades, Jim Carafano on the show, former vice president of the Heritage Foundation. Jim is a serious dude. He was a nuclear artillery officer for 23 years in the U.S. Army. That's a serious dude. And he's not like me. He's not a bomb thrower. He's not a Gates guy. Every sentence that comes out of his mouth on my show is, I don't do politics, right? Because he's from a foundation. When Jim Carafano, who wrote the textbook, I used to be a professor at National Defense University where, we trained our generals. He wrote the textbook I used to teach my officers on Homeland Security. It's got his name on it. When Jim Carafano, in front of 3.5 million people live on my radio show, says, because of Biden's open border, we will have multiple 9/11s and each one will be significantly larger than 9/11. When Jim Carafano says that, you bloody pay attention. So China, the border, long-term threat, the left. Because, as I said, the left hates America. When you've got millions of people who hate America, that's your proximate 5-meter target.
Before I let you go, because why wouldn't I close with something else that you've kind of gotten crossways with some people about, and that's Ukraine. You have a different perspective, I think, than a lot of conservatives have on Ukraine and Russia, and I'd just like you to air that here.
Oh, you really want me to get in trouble. All right. So, first let's talk about the propaganda, right? The lies about the war in Ukraine. We didn't surround Russia. We didn't cause this. It wasn't NATO expansion. Go back and read the speeches of the former KGB Colonel Vladimir Putin, former KGB Colonel, okay, not a good guy, from 21 years ago when he first became the head of state of Russia. For 20 years, he has said, Poland, Ukraine, and the Baltic states are all illegitimate non-countries that should be integrated into Russia. This isn't something that happened because of Biden. He helped it. This isn't something that happened because of Trump. This man has been planning it for 20 years. Secondly, Ukraine is corrupt. I lived for 15 years in the country next to Ukraine. The whole region is corrupt. What do you expect after 40 years of communism? But that's irrelevant. Why? Is America corrupt? Is Washington, D.C. run by traitors? Correct. Does that mean China can run its tanks down Constitution in D.C.? Of course not. Just because we have a corrupt system doesn't mean the nation has no right to exist. Last point, and this is the most important one. This is what drives me insane with quote-unquote conservatives like Tucker and others who say, well, it's irrelevant, who cares, blah, blah, blah. If George Washington had not been assisted by France, Holland, and Spain. France secretly sent hundreds of thousands of muskets, barrels of gunpowder, even uniforms for us to fight the British. If those other countries hadn't helped George Washington, you would all be speaking real English like me, right? No, I'm not kidding. You would be like, Australia. You'd be a part of the British Commonwealth today. It's just a...
But did they send pensions? We're going to pay their...
What do you It's not pensions. You know what it is. That's garbage. We're paying their pensions. We're sending them money to fund the Democrats.
So let me ask you this.
You know the money that goes to Kiev, most of it actually comes back to DNC donors here in America.
Well, they've said that.
Right.
They've owned that out.
It's not about a corrupt regime being funded by us. They're funding themselves. That's what they're doing.
But
this point is crucial. Ukraine is now fighting their 1776. And if 1776 means something to a conservative, so should the liberty of another country. Not deploying the 82nd Airborne, that's nuts. Not sending them pallets of cash, helping them kill as many invaders. That's what we should be doing, just like the Spanish, the Dutch, and the French did for us. And the last point is that really gets my goat. I'm old enough to remember real patriots like Ronald Reagan. I grew up under Maggie Thatcher in the UK. And I remember when no conservative was on the side of a KGB colonel. When I hear people who say they're conservatives talk about he's a great leader and a great Christian and blah, 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 and he's fighting the WF, you mean the great Christian who, as a KGB officer, actually tortured Christians in the basement of the Lubyanka KGB headquarters? That guy's the great Christian. Wake up. Open a history book.
Endless funding, though? Whatever it takes, as long as it takes?
I wrote an article at the outbreak of the war 2.5 years ago for Breitbart. What I wrote then is true today. We should only have given them three things. Three things, right? Not pallets of cash. Number one, all the Soviet equipment that is sitting in new NATO member nation states rotting. Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania, the Baltic states are stockpiles of Soviet kit that they don't need, NATO doesn't use, and everybody in Ukraine knows how to use because they were part of the Soviet. Let me wonk out here. Sending them M1 Abrams tanks. Do you know how many fluids an M1 Abraham tank runs on? 16 different types of lubricant and fuel. What does a T-Series tank run on? Diesel. Right? Why are we giving them stuff they have no experience on and don't know how to run? It's nuts. The other thing, nobody can come close to us in terms of intelligence. We control the skies. Our military satellites, our targeting equipment is peerless. China's getting close, but we're still the best. We should be giving them training. We should be giving them munitions, equipment that's Soviet era, and technical target sets from our satellites to hit the Russians and invade their territory. End of story. And all the slack, all the money for the pensions, if they want to do that crap, should be coming from the Europeans.
Would Ukraine be in a position they were right now if we didn't talk about the nukes?
Oh my gosh, think about that. Like Bill Clinton,
What was the question again?
It's the 1994 Budapest Memorandum. In 1994, can you imagine what the Ukrainians think of us now? Talk about honor deficit. In 1994, the US government, the British government, the French government, and the Russians, oh, isn't that interesting, signed a document called the Budapest Memorandum because at that point in time, Ukraine had the second largest stockpile of nuclear weapons after us, right? Us and the Russians, so the third. And we told them, hey, you're a new country. Nuclear weapons are bad. You should give them all to Russia, and we'll look after you. We will look after you. They never would have been invaded if we hadn't convinced them to give their nukes up. That is a black dot on our honor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Hey, no, you are a crappy salesman.
Really?
Yes, sit down, everyone, sit down. Hands up. I'm not interested in harump societies. or anything else. How many people here are coming with Chris and me
Oh,
on the
yeah.
Alaska Patriots cruise?
Are any of you coming on that
I'm not
Alaskan
going to embarrass
cruise in
you,
June? Any of you? Yeah.
but if you're not, you should. I've never been to Alaska. I've never been on a cruise. So if you want to have more of this with me, Chris, Mike Gallagher, my wife, his wife, June 29th to July 6th.
And cigars, by the way.
Oh, we're going to have cigars on the poop deck. I don't know what a poop deck is, but we will have cigars. Go to my website, sebgorka.com, hit the Patriots Alaska Cruise banner, check it out. It's going to be epic.
You know, it's not lost on me, and it's not lost on any of us that Seb, makes a 3-hour drive up here and is going to head home again tonight. And so, first of all, thank you that you take the time to make it for us here. We're so grateful for you to drive here. And I would just like to say that the team at Philadelphia's AM 990 The Answer, my colleagues who put a ton of work into this day, as well as the Cigar Republic to make this happen. They were over here all day yesterday setting up. And really the greatest executive producer I've ever worked with. This guy, Fast Eddie, is just a workhorse of a guy. And I'm just as blessed and privileged as I can be to work with these people. They are God-honoring, good people, and I hope you all know that, and I hope you will support the friends and sponsors of our radio station. I know that you do because you're here. I know this wasn't an inexpensive ticket, and you were here, and you're supporting our efforts, and we're so eternally, it's not pat when I say it. I am so eternally grateful for every one of you, and you're a blessing. You've been a blessing in my life and my family's life and all of my colleagues, so I thank you all. Fast Eddie, would you like to lock us out of here, my friend?
You got it, Chris. All right, one more time. Dr. Sebastian Gorka, everybody, come on. And Chris Stigall. Thank you. That's it. Hurrah. Hurrah. Yes. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Also, join us for our battleground in the fall. It is a presidential election year, so we're going to be cheering them on strong. Dr. G, Chris will be back.